was. Once we understand that, then it will get disengaged. Just by forcing it, it won't. And the other one I wanted to bring up that is going to come in next chapter is when Arjuna said that my mind is like a powerful wind. What should I do? I can't control it. It's like a hurricane wind, my mind. He said, Vairagya and Abhyas. Those are the two things he told them to do. You can control your mind. And Vairagya comes with, discriminating a real and unreal. And then I think somebody put on our that Upanishad chain or other one about this lady who was going to go to some nursing home. Right? I don't know how many of you read that. And the people who are here knew, we have two other chains that in our WhatsApp, where we share all these nice drishtant and all that. I can add you in that if you like. कि भाई वो जब जा रही थी लेडी तो उसको पता चला कि कितना कूड़ा कचरा इकट्ठा करके रखा है और किसी को कोई वैल्यू नहीं है उसकी, सब बेकार जाने वाला. So like at our stage we have to lighten our load so we don't have to deal with it so much. I thought that was a good one. So that also fits over here. हम लोग ही पकड़ के रखते हैं सब कुछ, एंड में किसी को कोई वैल्यू नहीं होने वाली उसकी. एंड our next generation, उनको हमारी चीज़ों की कोई वैल्यू नहीं है because they are, and that is normal because they have their own things, Yeah.
Uma ji, this जो हम जपा करते हैं, is it the same as abhyas?
Yeah, you can call it. All of that comes under, it's like you can look at it as purifying the mind.
Yeah.
Right? Because the whole purpose is कि जब तक पूरा mind pure नहीं होएगा हम वहाँ नहीं पहुँच सकते. Right? So it is purifying. Japa is in fact a very powerful technique, and in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna Bhagwan said, सारे यज्ञों में मैं जप यज्ञ हूँ. Means I am that. जपा को सबसे बेस्ट यज्ञ इसलिए बोला गया है, उसमें कोई बार नहीं है. उस जप करने के लिए ऐसा नहीं, कोई अनुष्ठान नहीं करना पड़ता है कि मैं ये दिया जलाऊं, मैं ये नहाऊं, मैं ये करूं. जप कभी भी कोई कर सकता है. सोते जागते लेटते, कोई बीमार पड़ा है उठ नहीं पा रहा है, वो जप कर सकता है. सो जपा को इज वेरी पावरफुल टेक्निक बताया गया है. और यहाँ अपनी क्लास में भी लॉट ऑफ पीपल डू दैट, जपा एंड ऑल दैट. वेरी वेरी पावरफुल. ऑल दे आर सेइंग इज जपा को मत समझ लेना मेडिटेशन. इट्स अ टूल. But it's an extremely powerful tool to get there.
I think it's basically learning to disconnect from your senses.
Yes, yeah. और एक बहुत अच्छा दृष्टांत है, आपने सुना होगा कि एक जीनी, क्या था वो दृष्टांत? Yeah, there was a man, who goes to his guru and says, गुरु उस पर प्रसन्न हो गया और उसको एक लैंप दे दी, जैसे अल्लाह दिन का होता है ना कि उसमें से जीनी बाहर आके तेरे को क्या चाहिए, एंड द जीनी विल गिव यू व्हाटएवर यू वांट. सो उसकी तो मेरे को खाना दे दे, मेरे को ये दे दे, एनीथिंग द जीनी विल डू फॉर यू, राइट. बट फिर क्या हुआ कि वो जीनी आके खड़ी, द जीनी वुड जस्ट स्टैंड देयर एंड से टेल मी टू डू समथिंग. फाइनली उसको सब कुछ मिल गया तो वो बोला, ये माय गॉड, वो जीनी तो मेरे को ही खाने को आ रही है. Genie became a big problem for him, right? So he went back to his guru and he said, ये क्या दे दिया मेरे को भूत, ये तो मेरे पीछे पड़ गया, like मेरा सारा काम कर दिया, अभी भी मेरे पीछे पड़ा है, तो how do I handle him? So he said, erect one pole in front of your house and tell the genie go up and down. जब भी कुछ नहीं होना काम, उसको वहां भेज दे तुम. तो ये दृष्टांत अपने मन के लिए है. मन is capable of getting us everything. Because man is very powerful. Through thoughts we can do a karma and karma we can achieve. But जब कुछ करने के लिए होता है मन खा जाएगा हम लोग को. तो वो जपा पे उसको लगा दो. That whenever you have nothing to do, start doing the japa. So that your mind is busy and it won't eat you up. I thought that was the most brilliant drishtant that I ever heard. So that's what japa ka mahima.
It is often a great mistake that seekers take the foregoing instructions too literally. They converge their eyeballs and gaze towards the space between the eyebrows for the purpose of meditation. This is an exaggeration, though it faithfully follows the instructions laid down here, it is to be understood, as Shankara says, to gaze as it were towards the point between the two eyebrows. It is psychologically very true that when we are looking as it were towards the eyebrow, our gaze would be turned upward at about 45 degrees to the vertical backbone. In that attitude of upward gaze, the human mind is held, uplifted, and it becomes the right vehicle for higher contemplation.
See, he explained it, right? So when we have closed our eyes, as though you look up so that you lift your mind up. That's the whole idea.
There is an intimate relationship between the rhythm of the flow of breath in us and our own mental thought conditions. The more agitated the mind is, the more spasmodic and uncertain becomes the rhythm of our breathing. Therefore, the instructions here, which advise us to control our breath flow to make it even within the nostrils, becomes a conducive physical practice for coaxing the mind to a relatively quieter existence.
So everybody understood. A lot of people, they do pranayam, like anulom vilom they do before they do the meditation and all. And, my yoga teacher, 35 years ago told me that it balances your emotion. That time I didn't understand too much, but I said, okay, if she's saying it, I should do it. And it really helped me so much, because even if you do that every day, it will quieten your mind a lot more. And I think there is one psychiatrist who actually is teaching on YouTube how to do this for his patients. People whoever wants to believe it, very powerful technique to quieten the mind, Anulom Vilom.
Another thing about Anulom Vilom, people who have high blood pressure, take your blood pressure before Anulom Vilom, and then do 5 minutes of Anulom Vilom and take your blood pressure again. It will drop about 20 to 30 points.
Wow. And I know that's exactly. But here, that Swami from Delhi already said, ye sab, if you have a very high goal, ye sab to ho hi jayega theek, apne aap hi, right? You don't even have to worry about it. जैसे ही मन शांत होएगा तो आधी से ज़्यादा बीमारी तो क्या 90% बीमारी 99 तो वैसे ही चली जाएगी, because it's all related with our mind. So true, all the medical things start getting better too.
These above instructions are all mainly physical adjustments for creating a conducive mental atmosphere. In the following stanza, the necessary adjustments to control the mental and the intellectual sheaths are hinted at. The tireless seeker is asked to control his sense of appetites, mental oscillations, and intellectual storms by dedicating all his outer and inner activities to the one great eternal goal of reaching perfection, realizing the self. As far as the taming of the intellect is concerned, the advice given by Krishna is that the seeker should renounce desires, fears, and anger.
So Swamiji is very beautifully divided into two different parts. One is, physical adjustment, keeping all the senses, objects outside. And then he called it mental and intellectual adjustment. And that is by, renouncing desire, fear, and anger. It's a little more difficult, but we all have to do it. Yeah.
In enumerating these three qualities, psychologically speaking, Krishna has expounded an exhaustive theory of self-development and inner growth. There is an intimate relationship between these three: desire, fear, and anger. Desire, we had found earlier, is that pattern of thought in which the mind runs constantly towards a given object of desire with an anxious expectation of procuring and possessing it. Where there is desire, there we come to experience fear. And it is very well known that when we desire a thing, so much as to live ever in the fear of losing the same, maddening anger can exhibit itself at any moment against any threat of an obstacle between ourselves and our object of desire. When these three emotions of desire, fear, and anger are controlled, we have controlled almost all the mad impulses of our intellect.
So, I mean, these three things he talks about it literally till the end. In fact, at one of the chapter, he says that this, he added greed in there. Desire, anger, and greed are the gateway to hell, he called it. Nark dwar. If you have this, nark mein pade ho tum seedha. So, this is what, and then we have gone through the ladder of fall, in chapter 2. I know there are some newcomers, if you go back to chapter 2, there are 2 verses. I don't remember the numbers. Maybe next time I will let you know. Towards the end, it talks about that how when a wrong thought comes in your head and you keep thinking about it, become a clinging desire. Those are the bad ones. When we think that iske bina main ji nahi sakti, aise nahi ho sakta hai. Constantly thinking of it, sleeping, also thinking about it. That's what leads to anger and fear, and then all the other bhai bain of greed and jealousy and mad and matsare, everything it originates from your desire only. That's what it's talking about. But these three they talk about the most.
Umaji, can I ask one question about it?
Sure.
About the intellect and the mind? Because I thought the feelings, etc., and the doubts are of the mind, right? And here we talked about something about the intellect. My understanding was that intellect is a decision factor. It is decided. And if we go through, mind should serve the intellect, rather. It's under it. So why my understanding is wrong here, because the book is saying about the intellect. Now tell me.
See, the thing is that firstly, nothing is in a fixed box. Okay. And then what they are talking about intellect, if your intellect is pure, right? Or intellect ne sab samjha hua hai. Ki, hey, firstly, we have done so many verses which says all this is happening in Prakriti.
Yes.
And you are not that. You are that Brahman which is, beyond Prakriti. And we did it, we saw it in Kathor. अगर ऐसा किसी का intellect होगा, तो उसकी integrated personality तो हो ही गई. He's not going to come under the sway of all these things anyway. So true that these reside, and it is going to, we have already done those verses where he talks about where do these things reside. They reside, Krishna Bhagwan had mentioned, in senses, mind and intellect. Likes and dislikes, where do they reside? Likes and dislikes are related with desire, anger, and fear. Whatever I don't like, that means I don't want it. Whatever I like, I want it. See how the desire, likes, and dislikes are connected with it? Where do they reside?
Right,
in all three.
Okay. But then the anger, and the anger is still a part of the mind, isn't it?
But you can justify it at your intellect level. If your intellect is not pure, you will say, I'm justified in this anger. So it has traveled to your intellect too. They reside in all three.
Okay.
That's what is, so that's why I always say that when we read Bhagavad Gita, we have to remember what we learnt earlier. If it is possible to catch at the early stage, and that's why it gave you a technique also, that hey, likes and dislikes sit in your mind first, and then say, hey, this is not, and then if mind mein ghus gaya hai wo, sit at the intellect seat, and say, hey, this is not justified. And intellect se bhi higher wo atma bola hai. Remember total intellect, we did that, that in the interest of, so all that combined. So when it comes to Kam, Krodh, and all these things, they can reside in all three.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
He who has thus freed himself from desire, fear, and anger, who has controlled his senses, mind, and intellect, in his all-consuming ambition for liberation, and who has quietened the flow of his breath, such an individual could remain in the contemplation of truth without contact with the external world, his eyes fixed steadily and held aloft upward gaze. Krishna says, such a man of meditation is verily free forever.
So he summarized all the things that he is supposed to do, right? And then that person is as though free only. When you say eva, like है ना ये word संस्कृत का eva saha, समझो हो ही गया उसका काम. And he's going to explain what it means in the next paragraph. What does he mean by हो ही गया काम?
This assertion that such an individual is verily free forever is an anticipatory truth and not an accomplished fact. In ordinary conversation, we use the phrase baking of bread, which in its literal meaning is false, since bread need not be baked. We bake only dough. But in such usages, what we mean is that the goal is not too far away from the particular act we are doing. Even while boiling water, we say that we are making tea. The idea is that tea making cannot be far away from the water has already been boiled. Similarly, here also, when we have made all the above mentioned adjustments at all levels of our existence, and when we sit in contemplation of the self, we become released from all our misunderstandings and come to experience the freedom of Godhood ere long nurtureth.
Achirena means soon enough. Remember, this word has come many times. Achirena means soon enough. All he's saying is that, और एग्जाम्पल कितना अच्छा दिया. हम लोग चाय बोलते हैं ना, मैं चाय बना रही हूँ. हम ये नहीं बोलते पानी उबाल रही हूँ, क्योंकि अगर पानी उबाल रही हूँ और चाय पत्ती मेरे पास है और मसाला मेरे पास है और चीनी मेरे पास है, चाय तो बन ही जाएगी, दूध मेरे पास है. सो दैट्स ऑल ही सेइंग, दैट जिसके पास ये सारी चीज़ें साथ में आ गई है तो चाय तो बननी है. तो अगर ये सब एडजस्टमेंट उसने कर लिया, ये सब कुछ कर लिया, तो उसको तो फ्रीडम मिलना ही मिलना है. दैट्स ऑल ही सेइंग. सो दैट्स व्हाई द अदर स्वामी एक्सप्लेन एज दो ही सिटिंग एट द एग्जिट डोर. बस वो कूदने ही वाला, जाने ही वाला है. Plane is about to take off. It's taken all the speed and everything. It's going to take off. That's what it's saying. Or the rocket is going to take off. Countdown has begun. होने ही वाला है उसका. So that's what this verse is about. Any other question, comment, or anybody wants to add anything? I think for us, it is just giving us tips what we have to adjust, what the adjustments we have to make.
So, these two slokas is telling us about two things. We discussed that. So we, as you said, we are ready to take off. What does it mean by ready to take off?
Means more than ready to take off is about to happen. Means if you say reverse, if you have done all these things, success is guaranteed. That's all it's saying. Because when it's going to happen, even we cannot have an anxiety about that. Like somebody was saying about sleep, okay? If you have too much anxiety about the sleep, you won't get sleep. But if you made the room dark, if you kept your mind out clear, don't think about this, that, तो sleep आ जाएगी. चिंता की वजह से sleep नहीं आएगी. So if you keep the world outside, inside your head, sleep नहीं आएगी.
कब आएगी वो sleep?
वो खाली ऊपर वाला जानता है. वो खाली ऊपर.
वो बात है.
तो वो हम लोग को उतना ट्रस्ट होना चाहिए. We have to have, तब बोलते हैं श्रद्धावान लभते ज्ञानम. If Krishna Bhagwan is saying it, then I don't need to worry. Then I have to surrender. बोलते हैं ना, निद्रा देवी के ऊपर सरेंडर कर दो बस, फिर वो आ जाए, फिर वो आशीर्वाद दे देगी. Or the other way they explain that, hey, we are finite people. We are trying to go to infinite. Infinite will decide when you are ready. I cannot grade my own paper and say, oh, मेरा तो काम क्रोध सब खत्म हो गया जी, मुझे दे दो. नहीं, सचमुच हुआ है नहीं, वो डिसाइड करेगा. अपना हमारा काम है keep purifying your mind and moving forward. That's all.
Basically saying that we have done everything that is required of us, and now the next moment is, it could happen in a moment or 2 moments, or
yeah, that we cannot have anxiety. And like some people जिनको सडनली ये रियलाइजेशन होता है, हम लोग ने बहुत डिस्कस किया हुआ है क्लास में, उन्होंने बहुत साधना की होती है पिछले लाइफ में. ऐसा नहीं कि जैसे वो सदगुरु कहते हैं मैं वो चामुंडी हिल में गया और मेरे को रियलाइजेशन हो गया. ही मस्ट हैव डन सो मच साधना इन हिज प्रीवियस लाइफ एंड ऑल दैट. उसका सारा जो हमारा जितनी भी मेहनत है ना, उसका सब अक्यूमुलेटेड इफेक्ट होगा, हो जाएगा. दैट्स व्हाट इट इज. Prabhakar ji, are you saying anything? Because we cannot hear you. All of a sudden your voice became like quiet. Same thing happened last time also. I don't know. Suddenly the voice, we cannot hear you. Any other thing? Okay, so I'm going to close Bhagavad Gita. We're still going to have some time, hopefully at the end, to if some other question pops up, we can take it up. Okay, I'm going to close Bhagavad Gita here. सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः. हरि ओम. No, it's just my all my teachers, gurus, and through them I learned Krishna Bhagavan, Jagat Guru. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Okay, so we finished verse. Make sure I have my list now. We finished verse 14. It was a very, very amazing verse last time. Uttishta Jagrata. Everybody remember Shurasya Dharya and all that? So much was going on in that one. And we learnt all that why it's like a razor's edge for the people who are not prepared. But people who are prepared, it is not that difficult as they say. And I was thinking about it. We were having a discussion about, like some people who go for things like neurosurgery. Yeah. So दूसरे लोग बोलते हैं, oh my God, it's so difficult. How does this person do? Because they have to do surgery for I've heard 12, 13 hours sometimes. Khaye piye bina and all that. So I was just saying that the people who are completely in tune with that, and they feel that's when they feel the most relaxed, because they feel they're made up of something else. They want to help people. And we might be thinking, oh my God, how is he doing that? But that's what is his forte. That's what he loves to do. He rather do surgery than do anything else in his life. That's why he's doing it. So अगर कोई मोक्ष परायण बन जाए ना, तो उसके लिए वो शुरस्थ धार्या नहीं रहेगी फिर. That's what I was thinking, that what you absolutely want to do very badly, that becomes easy for you. And you will, कोई भी उसमें problem आएगी, it will not look like a problem to you. That was the whole idea about this, So now in the next one, it is, what he's talking about is very, very similar thing what we did in Bhagavad Gita. But it taking a slightly different approach, but you will see a lot of similarity in it. So let's see what it says. And even this is the same Upanishadic style, that the highest is given first, and then he comes down to how to achieve this thing and what happens and all that. They open it up. So same thing is going on over here also. So let's look at the verse, whoever has the book. Verse 15 of Valli 2. Ashabdam, asparsham, arupam, and avyayam. Tatharasam, nityam, agandham, vachayat, anadi anantam, mahatah, param dhruvam, nichaya, tan mrityu mukhat pramuchyate. So now he's telling you characteristic of that Brahman. Ashabdam, it's without sound. asparsham without touch, arupam without form, avyayam without decay, जिसमें कोई व्यय नहीं होता है, हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना व्यय होना. Tatha is thus arasam without taste, nityam eternal, agandhavat without smell. So it's talking about the five senses जो हमारी हैं, जो which have connection with these five different kind of objects. He's saying it doesn't have any of that. Cha is and, yat is which, anadi and anantam, without beginning and end. Mahata param. This word has come before. Mahat is the same as the total intellect. Remember we discussed that how, our five elements are a part of this whole five elements, everything. For electricity is like, entire electricity together, like that we have to think. Same way, five elements, when the body dies, it just merges back into the other five elements. Same way, mind is also connected with the total intellect. That's what he's talking about. That's called Mahat. So it's beyond that. Dhruvam is changeless. So these words, you will see they are very similar, but Tejoma Energy give an explanation why they keep adding a little extra, because koi doubt ho, wo bhi nikal jayega. And we will see when we go into more detail what it is. Nichaya is having known. So यहाँ पर already कह दिया कि भाई वो five senses काम नहीं करते उसमें. Then what kind of knowing they are talking about? Not through the senses. Direct, aparoksh anubhuti जो हमने वो किया ना वहाँ पे. That's what they're talking about. Nichaya. Realizing it rather than knowing. That's what it means over here. Nichaya. Tat is that. They're talking about, whenever they say tat in Vedanta means they're talking about that. That means Atman. Or you can call it Brahman. Mrityu mukhat, from the jaws of death. Means तुम उससे jaws of death से निकल जाओगे. कौन बोल रहा है ये? Lord of death is telling you. मेरे चंगुल से छूट जाओगे. When Tejoma Energy brought that up, who's saying it? Lord of death is saying it. It was amazing. Okay. Pramuchyate is freed. Jaws of death से तुम free हो जाओगे. Okay, so I'm going to go to first Tejoma Energy's explanation, because he's amazing in explaining all these things. Okay, so first he said, I found it, once I learned this from Vedanta, I found it so scientific. Our five, elements. That how they are subtle from, like, what should I say, gradation. Okay? So, पहले आकाश, फिर वायु, फिर अग्नि, फिर जल, और फिर पृथ्वी. और उल्टा देखो ना, तो like पृथ्वी में पांचों गुण होते हैं. उसका मेन गुण है गंध बोला गया उसको, means smell. But it has rasa, rupa, sparsha and shabd also in it. You can hear it, you can, taste it, because taste मतलब कि हम लोग सब्जी रोटी हमेशा रोज खाते हैं, वो धरती से ही निकला है सारा. All the fruits, trees that we grow, we are tasting the earth, right? It's coming from the earth only. And our body is also made up of all that. And then when you go to the water, अगर pure water होगा उसमें गंध नहीं होती. अगर गंध है वाटर में तो वो अर्थ का एलिमेंट की वजह से. If you are completely H2O, there will be no gandh, but there will be rasa, sparsha and shabda, rupa, everything will be there. When you go to fire, then that taste is not going to be there. Rupa, sparsha and shabda will be there. And then air you go, there will be only sparsha and shabda. And space is only shabda. So how it subtle it becomes, very much. Space, we cannot taste the space, or, the only thing is कि space में sound होता है. Right? कुछ भी नहीं होगा तो वो, like they say, there's an om sound. Everybody's heard of that, right? If there's nothing there, there's om sound, because it is the quality of the space. So, what they are saying in this verse is that this is, Atma is beyond all this. उसमें इन सब का कोई प्रवेश नहीं है. And, talking about all these elements, there was a very interesting thing that Tejoma Energy brought out. He's saying that why do we worship Agni in India? कोई भी चीज होती है ना, अग्नि को साक्षी मान के करो. वेडिंग भी होएगी, कोई होम होएगा, यज्ञ होएगा, सब में. And for some people like Parsis, that's a very holy thing. You know why? I never thought about it, but he explained it. He's saying because out of all elements, first is Akash, and when Agni is the first one you can see. Vayu also you cannot see, but Agni is the first one that you can see. That's why it is so important. Usko sakshi mana jata hai, that element, So that was a very interesting one. So he's saying that, okay, let's go back to like the modern science, that what is matter? What is the definition of matter? It has physical and chemical properties, he said, So anything that does not have a physical and chemical property, then you can't even just talk about it because we can't grasp it with our five senses. It's a very difficult thing to explain Brahman because it does not have any of these chemical properties. So how do you describe it? And then one more point he brought that we don't think about. He's saying that I am the experiencer of these five elements. That's why I am the subtler than them. Because it's a subjective journey, right? Who am I? I am experiencing these five elements. That's why, I am subtler than that. Even that you remember. And then, so the mantra is telling you that this is all beyond these five things. And the next word he uses is avyayam. Means उसमें कोई change, व्यय नहीं होता है. तो बोला इसीलिए व्यय नहीं होता है कि because उसमें कोई quality नहीं है. Usually quality का व्यय होता है. Right? पदार्थ में, like all these properties are there. Modification, in English they call it. जैसे कि कुछ मैं बाहर रखूँ तो जंग लग जाएगा उसमें, खराब हो जाएगा, तो modification हो रहा है. Like or our body में modification होता है. We have, childhood, then we become, teenager, then we grow up, then we get वृद्ध, then all modification. So that goes through modification, but तो उसको व्यय बोलते हैं, change को. लेकिन उसमें ये सब है ही नहीं तो व्यय नहीं होएगा. और अव्यय है वो इसीलिए नित्यम है. See how these words are, the next word he uses nityam in this verse. Describing, because nityam means always the same. Always there, you can call it. And then earlier he reminded us, Tejome Anandji, that he had called it na mriyate na jayate, means जिसका जन्म नहीं होता और जिसका मतलब मृत्यु नहीं होती. और उसको शाश्वतम भी बोला एक word, संस्कृत का. Earlier verses में आया है शाश्वतम. All these have the same meaning. So nityam is, you can call it deathless also, eternal. And then they added the word dhruvam. So he was explaining why he added the word dhruvam means permanent also. Because he said sometimes we can look at a thing relatively permanent. And I was thinking about it. इस country में बोलते हैं ना, I got a permanent job. बोलते कि नहीं. It doesn't mean कि वो job हमेशा रहने वाला है. Impossible. या तो retire हो जाएगा, fire हो जाएगा, या he will die, person, and then वो job will not die. But in the like temporary से compare करो तो permanent means relative he's talking about. लेकिन यहाँ पर ध्रुवम इसलिए डाला कि ये टाइमलेस है, टाइम के फ्रेम में नहीं है. जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ना कि सूर्य परमानेंट है, बोलते हैं कि नहीं, पहले भी था, हम लोग मर जाएंगे तो भी रहेगा एंड ऑल दैट. बट from the very, very high scientific perspective, it is still not permanent. One day it is going to go away, even to become a giant red star or whatever and swallow the earth. Means uska decay shuru ho jayega. But here when they talk about dhruvam, they actually mean timeless, means not in the framework of time. जिसको संस्कृत में बोलते हैं कालातीत. So remember that. That's why they added the word dhruvam. So together with nityam and dhruvam, that's what they mean. And then it says mahatah param means